What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the CotAcasT. My name is Brian Bermudez, and I'm the host of the Craft of the Air podcast, the aviation podcast that really just expands your knowledge in each and every episode. Join us as we explore the untold world of aviation together. I'm so glad that you guys are tuned in for today's episode. You know, this is a deadly one. I mean, some pretty wild news coming from a really nice, calm Sunday morning, and the world was really jolted by an alarming news headline. And this one was an incident aboard a Alaska Airlines flight, one that could have ended in an unparalleled tragedy, and is grappled with the nation with fear, disbelief, and a barrage of questions. And really, as investigators, dive into the events that led to this near miss catastrophe, the public's focus shifted to the larger issue at hand. What safeguards are in place to protect the millions who take the skies each day? And we think about how do airlines ensure the mental well-being of pilots and crew, and this in-depth exploration unveils the layers behind the Alaska Airlines incident, and really shedding light on the rigorous checks in place, and the human aspect of aviation, and the imperative for continued vigilance in the industry, where there's really no room for error. And we dive into all of this, a lot to really uncover in this episode of the CotAcasT. First things first, this episode of the CotAcasT is brought to you by Craft of the Air. Stuck on ideas, looking to facilitate advances in aviation maintenance? Consulting by Coda possesses unique resources to elevate your aviation tasks to new heights. Get comprehensive advice, detailed reports, and cutting-edge data on innovative solutions that empower you to make confident decisions. A&P student, A&P mechanic, need a refresher? Look no further than Cram by Coda. Consolidated reviews of aviation maintenance tailored for you by a certified A&P subject matter expert is going to be ensuring that you're fully prepared for that new ACS, everything that's being adapted into the new testing and curriculum. So you could check all of that out with Craft of the Air, and also offering general aviation maintenance in the New Jersey, New York, and Connecticut tri-state area. You're going to have to check all of that out. Visit www.craftoftheair.com. Again, that's www.craftoftheair.com today, and learn everything Coda can do for you. Craft of the Air, our craft is of the air. So now, I'm going right into it. And this was a very serious incident. I'm still adjusting myself here. This was a very serious incident. It was a very peaceful Sunday, and really, I say that like in general, as if it was peaceful for everybody in the whole nation. It's a peaceful Sunday. I'm setting the stage. And this incident on board an Alaska Airlines flight, it shocked the nation. We had an off-duty pilot, Joseph Emerson, and he allegedly attempted to shut down the aircraft's engines mid-flight. Bugging, huh? A quick response by the crew prevented a tragedy, but the incident left many questions, really looking at safety and the mental health protocols in place. This is... historically, aviation safety, it continues to evolve. And when we think about mental health, there may be some evolution that may be required there in terms of maybe periodic testing, on the well-being of aviation professionals, particularly pilots. Now, speaking about this pilot and the suspect, he hasn't You know, we have to say suspect. But the suspect's background, now this pilot, Emerson's actions were unexpected and really, really shocking. You know, he was pleading, he pled not guilty to 83 counts of attempted murder. You know, court documents revealed that he had taken, quote, magic mushrooms, end quote. Are you kidding me, man? It's a pilot. Magic mushrooms 48 hours before the flight. Like he had a stopwatch, like he knew it was exactly 48 hours before he got there, like he planned it. I'm just saying, I'm just throwing that out there. He knew exactly. You know, while he's saying that he took quote unquote magic mushrooms, first of all, you know, the most irresponsible thing you can do as a pilot or anybody that works in aviation is to be under the influence of any type of narcotic or substance. You know, so and even alcohol being very seriously monitored. You know, this is something that, you know, to say that this pilot, a professional commercial pilot, was taking mushrooms in his hotel room. Come on, man. There's more to it than that, if that's even what he was doing before that flight, before getting into that jump seat. Now, the man battled, you know, depression for 6 years, according to reports. And Emerson, he claimed that he hadn't slept in 40 hours and believed he was experiencing a nervous breakdown. So he hadn't slept in 40 hours. That means, let me check these notes. So he took the mushrooms. So he said he took the mushrooms 48 hours. That means he was up for 8 hours. You see, it's interesting when you start to look at this. But if he had not slept for 40 hours and he believed he was experiencing, quote, a nervous breakdown, end quote, and had taken these magic mushrooms, you can certainly see why this pilot would be freaking out, man, in that flight deck. Alaska Airlines, they released a statement. The airline, in its statement, they clarified that neither the gate agents nor flight crew noticed any signs of impairment in Emerson during the check-in or boarding process. You know, it's interesting, you know, and it's such a shame. He looks like such a young pilot, and you know, obviously, possibly going through more things than we may even know, even have any idea. You know, it's interesting, really. You know, Sean Przinski, the insights. He led the CBS News report, and he's a former pilot, and he led a report on diving into pilots and mental health, and I thought it was very interesting, really. You know, Sean Przinski, he has a decade of cockpit experience, and on airline safety and pilot mental health, he really made some strong points. He's also served for the FAA, the NTSB, and he now teaches aviation safety at Ohio State University. And, you know, really speaking on this and pilots screening for mental health, you know, the first line of defense in ensuring pilots are mentally fit is the medical certification that they must obtain. And commercial pilots are required to obtain a first-class medical certification, right? And, you know, this first-class medical certification is really the highest level, which involves disclosing, you know, health conditions like sleep apnea and depression. You know, they require additional documentation from physicians. You know, You can ask the question, or you should ask the question: should mental health screenings for pilots be more frequent and rigorous? When I think about it, frequency is crucial, but so is depth. You know, a comprehensive evaluation can really provide insights beyond the surface that we're seeing. You know, mental health clearance of these pilots, while pilots on certain antidepressant drugs can still be cleared, the side effects, they play a crucial role in the decisions that they're making. The FAA mandates that pilots must not have severe mental conditions like psychosis, bipolar disorder, or really a recent history of substance abuse. Are there potential biases in determining which mental conditions deem a pilot unfit? Every condition has a spectrum. Blanket policies might exclude competent individuals while letting others slip through. It's and you think about this situation with Alaska Airlines and this pilot, this off-duty pilot that was in the jump seat, and it really looks at I think what I think about is the screening process, and what comes with that screening process is the self-disclosure and honesty. That's one of the complexities of the screening process. Is its reliance on pilots' self-disclosure. If there are concerns, aviation medical examiners can ask for additional testing or evaluations. But as our expert pointed out and noted, the entire system is, quote, based on your honesty, end quote. How can how can airlines, foster an environment where pilots feel safe to self-disclose? Trust is cultivated over time. That's really in any job, but in any position, but really by prioritizing the well-being over, punitive measures. We're encouraging honest conversations, or at least promoting it. There are safety nets into this entire equation. An annual medical certification, it ensures that pilots' mental health is frequently assessed. And, additionally, pilots have the channel to raise concerns about a coworker's mental health. That's important, either to the airline or organizations like ALPA. The ALPA being the Airline Pilots Association. Third party organizations like the ALPA, they complement airline safety protocols, and really by providing external perspectives. You have to balance commercial interests of airlines with the primary goal of safety. When it comes down to it. Speaking of the ALPA and the Airline Pilots Association International, they have mechanisms to address such concerns. And Pushinsky, having worked with the organization, he shared that they have psychologists to evaluate pilots, and they can collaborate with airlines to temporarily pull a pilot off the roster. That's an important role in terms of safety that the ALPA provides in this entire equation. Now, This incident occurred. This pilot was off duty, and he was riding jump seat. Now, it's interesting, really, when we speak about the jump seat. And for those not familiar with the jump seat in a flight deck, we will typically have two seats for the captain and the first officer, and then we have a third pull-out seat. And that's just usually aft or just behind the captain and first officer's seats. And that's usually for an off-duty pilot. Sometimes it could be for maintenance personnel. But it's interesting. Not anybody can just sit in that jump seat. Very amazing experience if you ever have the opportunity. Those listening, one of the perks of being an A&P, you may have the potential of riding jump seat depending on the company that you work for. And it's just such a great opportunity to be able to sit there inside the flight deck, and you're there from takeoff to landing, and you're kind of nestled right in between the captain and the first officer. So one of the most amazing views you'll ever get. But I will tell you this from personal experience on the jump seat, it could be pretty tight in there for extended periods of time. David, you listening? Especially on a Boeing. Oh, man. Ride jump seat on a 37 from Seattle to JFK. Oof. Prefer a Neo, an Airbus Neo. Oh, an Airbus compared to the Boeing with the jump seats? It's like, it's night and day. All right, anyway, we'll say that for the next CotAcasT. We'll compare the jump seats of the planes. You like that idea? And we can put the picture here in the corner. I'm getting good with the editing. All right, getting back, there's no editing on this. The jump seat privileges, Emerson's position in the cockpit was the jump seat. And, this is, when you think about it, typically reserved for FAA inspectors, off-duty pilots, possibly mechanics. As our expert weighed in and explained, allowing someone in this jump seat is really, it's a privilege, not a right. You're sitting inside the flight deck with the captain and the first officer inside a $350 million aircraft with 83 people in the back. This is a privilege. And, the captains really have the discretion to refuse this request if they perceive any risk. The captain is the boss. Should you think about it? Should jump seat policies be revised in light of this troubling incident? When we think about the jump seat, it's essential in understanding that, remember the policy must be fluid, evolving with, it has to be with every airline. And we have, if we're going to allow some people to be in there in some instances rather than other people in other instances, I guess it would, in my opinion, would have to be clear cut across the board. All right. Now, thinking historically into this, this wasn't the first time. This was not the first time that someone in a jump seat caused a scare. Going back to 1997, an incident saw an off-duty pilot awaiting a disciplinary hearing. And he attacked pilots, in an attempt to crash a cargo plane. This was in 1997. The crew overcame the attacker and the plane eventually landed safely. But it has happened before. Not the first time. These past incidents teach aviation, the aviation industry about safety. And that, that history, it echoes, of past events. But it offers us a blueprint for aviation, protocols and safety. When we think about it, it's, you got to think prevention, and you got to think about this never happening again. We all know somebody that flies. if not regularly, occasionally, but we all know someone that we care about that has something to do with aviation. And you wouldn't want that in the back of anyone's head, waiting or getting on a plane, having to wonder about the mental health of their pilot, their flight crew. You know, ensuring that such incidents don't reoccur requires a balance, so to say. You know, authorities, FAA, EASA, they need to devise ways to screen pilots without solely depending on their disclosures. You know, while these events, the two events, they're rare, they underscore the need for robust systems. You know, what proactive measures can airlines take beyond relying on pilots' disclosures? You know, it's systematic. I think systematic checks to ensure no stone is left unturned. Proactive approaches to accommodate evolving technology and human insights. You know, systematic checks, and ensures that no stone is left unturned, and ensuring the safety of this aircraft. You know, it's really essential to place this incident into context. You know, out of thousands of pilots that are flying out there right this second, millions of pilots that are flying out there this second, none seemed, you know, most are stable, so to say. Such incidents are extremely rare, but this one magnifies this one particularly. It magnifies the importance of vigilance and you know, really our screening processes, robust screening processes. You know, how do we balance the rarity of such incidents with the potential severity of their outcomes? You know, the incidents are infrequent, yes, but their gravity, you know, it demands really unwavering attention to these types of issues. You know, the incident, while isolated, it really sparked widespread concern among the public, as it should. You know, travelers became increasingly vocal about their worries concerning the mental health of those entrusted to fly commercial aircraft. You know, it's the public's perception is really powerful. You know, it can really catalyze change and hold, you know, industries accountable. And it's good that we were able to find out about this in the way we were, with so much information so quickly. You know, it's interesting because we have a flight attendant's perspective, you know, and Sarah, a veteran flight attendant, she expressed her really anxieties. You know, she said, quote, "It's not just the physical safety we're worried about, but the mental well-being of our colleagues. We're often the first line of observation, and we need better training to spot early signs of distress." End quote. And that's a powerful statement right there. You know, what additional training can flight attendants receive to spot early signs of distress? That can be critical in preventing a catastrophe. You know, empowering flight attendants with mental health awareness, it can make them our first line of defense, really, in combating these types of things from ever occurring again. You know, mental health in high pressure professions like aviation, it could be complex. You know, balancing the stigma of mental illness with the imperative for safety is challenging. You know, and you look at it, you know, industry insiders, they urge more open conversations about mental health. And when you really emphasize support over, you know, scrutiny, potential scrutiny, We can address mental health without stigmatizing it. Understanding and education are our strongest tools against stigma. And we really must remember that mental health is health. Nah, you know, the conversation when we think about this whole thing and the flight schools, the conversation has also shifted to flight schools. Aspiring pilots, they undergo rigorous training and, focusing mostly on technical skills. There's a growing demand to incorporate mental health training and awareness at that foundation level. That's important, you know. And people may ask, should flight schools have modules on mental well-being and resilience? You know, absolutely. Why not, my friend? And you can. There's so much positivity that can come out of adding something like that. To flight schools. Building on a resiliency, a resilient mind should be as fundamental as mastering the technical aspects of flying. When you think about it, pilot unions and associations are also pivotal. Post the incident, there's been a call for them to play a more proactive role, not just in the defense of pilots, but also in providing mental health resources and assistance. In addition to the pilot unions and associations, and this one's critical, lawmakers have also taken note. Proposals are already in the works to mandate stricter mental health evaluations and, regular check-ins for pilots. Some even suggested anonymous reporting systems for peers to report concerns without the fear of retribution, like an ASAP report. David, you listening? Every AMP listening knows what an ASAP report is, and we're not going to go into it in this episode for the people that don't know what it is. What can we think about? Like, what changes are needed to ensure that we have these safer skies when you're thinking about a legislation perspective? It has to be both protective and adaptive. When you think about it. And airlines, they also play a crucial role. Beyond the regulations, there's a need for carriers to cultivate, this environment where pilots and crew feel safe discussing their mental health challenges. And media, you can go on and on about so many different ways. How can media play a constructive role in this? The coverage influences public perception, really. Responsible reporting, like what you're listening to right now or watching on the CotAcasT, responsible reporting, devoid of sensationalization, it can really educate the public on the nuances of the issue and the measures in place. The media is important when you think about that, because really that is where, again, the influences of public perception comes from here. And really the incident has also spawned, public education initiatives. Several, campaigns aim to really demystify the life of pilots and emphasizing the stressors that they face and the importance of mental well-being in their line of work. And that's critical in the future of aviation. The industry is at this crossroad, and while technological advancements continue to make flying safer, the human element remains paramount, as I mentioned in CotAcasT EP46. Addressing mental health proactively is what's going to ensure that skies remain safe for all. And coming to the end of this episode, behind every pilot's uniform, there's a personal story. Many are now sharing their experiences and really hoping to, really destigmatize the discussions, really, around mental health. These stories are going to underscore the need of empathy and understanding. And that's critical. The Alaska Airlines incident, it serves as a somber reminder of the unforeseen challenges in the aviation industry. Really, really does. And personally, someone who, worked for an airline, worked for Alaska, worked on the West Coast, worked in Alaska, spent some time away from home and the family on the East Coast. As a mechanic, the hours, the overnight hours, they can get to you. The stresses involved, the multitasking, the responsibilities associated, the complexities of the tasks can be overwhelming, can get to you. You spend so much time, really kind of gearing away from it now, but really back when I was first becoming an A&P, so much time traveling for training and Gen Fems and this class and this cert. And now I'm flying to Seattle and we're going to Alaska and then we're going back to Seattle. We're going to, that life of traveling, it's glamorous. It's the best. But being alone, traveling and being in hotel rooms and changing time zones day after day after day, in which what our pilots are really the ones who experience this in our flight crew, our flight attendants. It can take a mental toll on you. Aviation can take a mental toll on you. And for our pilots, with the amount of responsibility that they have, and the hours they work, and the way in which they have to work, and the attention to detail that they have to maintain, this can get to some. And it's very, very grateful that the story did not end tragic. And we just hope that this Mr. Emerson, if he is in fact going through depression or these types of things, that he gets the help he needs. As that narrative around mental health evolves, there's hope that the skies will not only remain safe, but also become a place of compassion and support. And that about wraps it up for this episode of the CotAcasT. If you guys have not done so already, you got to check out that Craft of the Air website, aircraft maintenance, general aviation maintenance, my friends. Connecticut, CTNJNY. We in the tri-state area. You got to visit that website, www.craftoftheair.com. Again, that is www.craftoftheair.com, and get your free initial consultation today. Craft of the Air, our craft is of the air. Comments or suggestions about this or future episodes? What? Let's get in touch. Visit that Craft of the Air website at www.craftoftheair.com. Go to contact and put in the subject CotAcasT. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the CotAcasT. Be sure to follow and subscribe to the Craft of the Air YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. We're on Spotify, Apple, just about every platform that you can imagine. So you're going to have to just tell everybody you know about the CotAcasT. Thanks for listening. Hope everybody has a safe week. I'll be seeing you soon.